Boom, hello, and welcome to the Executive Protection Lifestyle Podcast. This is the #1 podcast in the executive protection game, and this is the largest free real-world library of executive protection content in existence. So sit back, relax, dig in, and enjoy the show while we honor the slogan that executive protection is more than just a job, ladies and gentlemen. It really is a lifestyle. Boom.
When you're a protector, you have these protective functions, but if you're working with an artist, especially an A-list artist, they have what's called a publicist,
right?
And they are
nemesis.
pushing everything out. And the client may be doing the same. And your client also has social media, who may like to take photos from their hotel room window or talk about where they're going to dinner. So you're fighting a battle on a couple fronts, but talking about what these guys had already mentioned. So when we talk about event security, like live event security, you have layers, right? You have guys that say are at a venue and they control the management of that venue and how things work. And you may have like a security manager who deals with people, and you may have a contract staff, like in California, Staff Pro and CSC and stuff like that. And you have to manage those individuals, right? That's a different level. They're dealing with crowd management. And so those aspects are more predictable, right? Because the fire marshal is going to set a square footage in this room of how many people can be here, whether it's general admission or whether it's reserved seating. And that's what we have to go with, right? And the crowd flow plan on the outside in terms of traffic and escorts and all that stuff, that's going to be what it's going to be. We can have some input, but they have that down. They've done it for sports, they've done it for other live events, so they got that. Then you get the guys coming in like us who say we need X, Y, Z with an advance, and maybe we have a site survey team who's popping up a day before or 2 days before to do a walkthrough with the building people and the local head of security. So these are different layers. And when we talk about the ecosystem with celebrities, it's completely different. So I talked to most of you guys in this room already at the table. I come from the military, I come from law enforcement, I was a professional fighter, I have all this stuff. When I dealt with executives, they were organized, they were structured, they worked a certain way. Their people around them were expected to operate the same way. They showed up early, they were ready, they were fresh, they looked good, drivers were briefed, they had a high-end company, they had additional support networks. These people think in a structured, ordered process. When you deal with artists, and I started with artists in '99, when you deal with artists, it is creative, and their mindset is the opposite of that. And in fact, I would tell you, if you want to find a person that an artist would hate, look at me. I have at least 30 clients in the entertainment side, at least 50% actively work to create chaos because they're comfortable in chaos and they grew up in chaos. And that's
the birth
what
of creativity is chaos.
It's the antithesis of security and order and predictability and structure and being able to do something with a high degree of certainty. So in my experience, and these guys probably have different mechanisms to do this, but in my experience, learning what they care about. So is it money? Is it family? Is it the appearance of something or subject? Or is it the fashion that they're wearing, whatever? I try to utilize that to explain to them, hey, it will affect this thing and that thing, but I always have an alternative. Hey, LeBron went to that restaurant instead because they harassed him here and they had nowhere to park and the paparazzi, and they're like, oh, LeBron went to that restaurant? Okay, and then we're over there easy because they're influenced by basketball and he's the guy and he ate at that restaurant. And 99.9% of the time, what I'm telling is the truth, but I have to do the research and figure out what it is that other celebrities did, which is like a TMZ thing. And then I know how to talk to them. I'm not lying, I'm not cheating, I'm not stealing, I'm not doing anything bad. I'm not compromising my ethics. I'm presenting it in a way where they can hear it the way they need to. Because if I talk to them like I talk to you guys, I'm done.
It won't work.
And it's not the best outcome for them, not me. It's not the best outcome for them.
So here's the amazing thing I've heard so far. Everyone up here gets it, which I knew when you were assembling a team that was going to happen.
You know, this is the expendables. You know what I'm saying?
But what you're going to see, and the thing that comes back over and over again, is that the way we find success in this segment of the industry is overcoming the challenges, is problem solving. And so like I always like to say is that the foundations of close protection are the same. Then you start getting to the specialized areas, and celebrity protection is a specialized area, which means that it's not one size fits all. It means just because you've completed this course or you have this type of background or this type of law enforcement, this type of military, that you can just slide right into this sector. Right. It just doesn't happen. Now, you can do that for a day or an assignment or a detail, but usually there's no longevity in that. Either the client gets pissed off at you, mostly because you're telling them no,
You're trying
or you are just ultimately dissatisfied, and you're like, why do I gotta put up with this bullshit?
Right.
So I think, so the piece I think that where you find is success in this is the mindset.
Boom, if you've been enjoying the podcast, I want to encourage you to come and train with me. Train with us, the League of Executive Protection Specialists. We offer online courses so you can train and learn how to take your executive protection career to the next level from the comfort of your own home. We offer on-ground training on everything from the hard skills of driving, shooting, medical, and into the soft skills through the Executive Protection Immersion course, which is one of the most experiential, learning-centric courses in the executive protection industry. Either way, I want you to become part of the golden standard in the private security industry and join the brotherhood, the League of Executive Protection Specialists. Go to epspecialist.com and let's do our careers together. I'll see you there. Out.
I've been in the executive protection world only 5 years. I've been in the celebrity protection world 21 years. And I did the courses and I did the training and I've worked for some HNWs and UA, ultra high net worth individuals as well. It's not the exact same, but it's pretty close. And I would say, in my humble opinion, maybe about 80-85% the same thing. At the end of the day, we're there to make sure that the people get home safe and stay and survive and alive. Everybody here has a lot of experience, but one thing we all have in common is none of our principals ever got hurt. And that applies for celebrity protection, executive protection. I want to just say thank you to Byron for putting this together because, and I think Elijah, we've been working in the same, I've been seeing him for the last 21, 22 years working. You might agree with me on this. Celebrity protection these days is the stepchild that EP people kind of look down to. And I do not blame them for that because there's a lot of bad actors out there these days more than ever with social media. I mentioned before, trying to make a brand out of their names and trying to be a celeb themselves. So I don't blame the EP world for looking at celebrity protection and rolling their eyes. But there's some very high operators in here at a level where most EP guys can't do what we do. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I do both. And I know that because I work with both. And if anybody here is thinking to themselves, well, this is a great dais and it's celebrity protection, but I'm only interested in executive protection. Might your client have a daughter that goes to a show? Might your client do a deal with another celebrity? Might it not be a good idea to learn how this side of the world works? Because he mentioned before, I think Todd mentioned before, the exposure that these guys have. When you bring the CEO of Walmart to Starbucks, nobody really cares, right? You can get in and out, no problem. When we bring one of our protectees, we've got to know in-house, back of house, look out for that paparazzi on the moped. Look, everything, why is that barista have her camera phone out? Every little thing, every nuance we got to look at. I mean, that's just small potato stuff. It goes on a much higher scale from there. So at the end of the day, we're all here to protect the people's lives and keep them safe. But let's think about this for a second, guys. Think about, I'm going to name some names and think what they all have in common. I talked about Biggie and Pac earlier. Lady Di, Johnny Versace, John Lennon. What do all these guys have in common? I could keep going. Aaliyah, Jimi Hendrix. What do they all have in common? They're all dead too young, right? They all died too young. Weren't they principals? Couldn't something have been prepared better if they had the right protection? How many CEOs and CFOs of Fortune 500 companies have died in their 30s?
I love the concept of on-the-job training. The only way you're going to do this is to actually do it. With that said, you don't get to practice on my accounts. So that means if I bring you out there, whatever the parameters are, my expectation is that you do that. Right. And if you do that, I can bring you back, So there's an observational piece in that as well.
100%.
And if we back up a little bit, in terms of the training, we're observing you in that space. So I always say that I'm never promising to someone a job when they take my training course. However, I am looking at them because what I realized is originally, like everybody else, I used to put an ad in the paper and I would do an interview. And let's say I interviewed somebody once for an hour, or twice for an hour, three separate interviews, totaling 10 hours of interviews. Well, my shortest training course is 60 hours. So in that 60 hours, I get to see how you react under stress, under fatigue, and how you interact with other people. And that's how I make those decisions. So when I bring you on the account, even if it's in a limited capacity, how you act on that account is how I make the decision on whether I put you on something else. So it's not necessarily, what you did 20 years ago or what you did overseas in the sandbox or who you know. It's when you're in a role, can you operate to the request inside that role? And, like you said, people doing too much will get you out of the job. And so we're so eager, particularly in this sector here, because these types of clients, because they don't have that structure, they just reward things. Sometimes it seems like randomly, right? So you want to do a good job, and you think coming up with, I call it the good idea fairy.
The good idea fairy,
coming up with these great ideas. And let's do this, or trying to anticipate the client's need and going down this slippery slope. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the details screw.
Because now, for the rest of the tour, we have to clean the roof because Jerry thought it was a good idea to go in the hotel room and clean the roof. You know what I mean? It's like the good idea fairy, man, doing the most, going out.
So
there,
we think
trying to get points for yourself.
Yeah, you think like, oh yeah, the client will like that. And it's like, no, you're screwing this up.
Yeah.
So when I bring somebody on the account, just do that, but just do it to the best of your capability with a great attitude, and let me make the decision about whether I bring you back for mine or I refer you to someone else. Because a lot of times we just rule ourselves out of potential positions without us even knowing it.
What has been your experience as a celebrity protector going into, say, something like a venue, UFC event, boxing event, where you're dealing with other types of security? How does that dynamic work? And then the part two for that, Elliott, would be, what are kind of the do's and don'ts that you've seen from CP guys or even EP guys that come to your events, and maybe they're stepping on somebody's toes or they're trying to be the biggest, baddest guy in the room, and you're like, hey, brother, we're on the same team. Thank you.
It's a solid question, and you're going to deal with that. You're going to deal with that in our world. I think it's important, and I know these guys are going to agree with this, to realize that you're in their house, right? You're in their house, and you got to respect that. They know the emergency evac routes way better than you. They're there every single day. That's their team. They know it well. So what we all do is we have what's called a security rider. And inside the client's rider, they have everything from the hospitality rider, which they want lukewarm Fiji. The temperature needs to be 72 degrees in the dressing room. They want dim light, all this other stuff. But we're in charge of the security rider. And it's our job to get that rider out down to how many guards in the pit, how high the stage is. Do we have riot barricades or bike racks? Do we have vehicles set up in the back? Is a police escort needed? You send that out early, because just because you're bringing your principal there to that arena, they've had 15 or 20 principals that arena that month. So you got to send that rider out early, get a point of contact with the security director of the venue, and then open that line of comms. They're very bad at responding right away, but at least you got it out there. And if you get it out there early, then you buy yourself some time, because the worst thing in the world is when you start sending emails or text messages a couple days before because you just finished a show in Tulsa and now you got to go to Phoenix and let me contact this guy. No, man, you're the fourth act there this week. So
I'll say this: there are certain auxiliary services that, for example, drivers, if they're not internal and part of your detail, venue security, the hotel security, that will absolutely make or break your detail.
100%.
And you guys have probably all run into it. I've gone into it. Yes, you tell me what you need from me, and I'm going to make your job as easy as I can. There's a couple things I need, but you tell me how to make this a two-way street.
Let's go.
Broke him down right away. We continued to talk, and he saw I was going to do what I needed to do to make him look good so he could make me look good.
Right.
And then he made that detail. He did some things that I needed there. So there's also times where you're coming on the back end of something that was not good for these guys. Or a driver who his last EP detail, it was hard for him to deal with, and it's not an internal guy, so you got to work with this guy. Drivers will be in the wrong place. They won't show up on time. Venue security won't let you in. That is a nightmare, and it's your work product. It doesn't matter the driver didn't show up. It doesn't matter the venue didn't help you. That's your detail. You obviously can't effectively run a detail, so now I'm going to have to go to the next service. So these things are very key, and it's a very relationship-driven business, like really I think in any industry or any business, but this one is essential to build those relationships. One more piece I'll say is, if I was at that venue once a year, if I only talk to this guy once a year, I'm brand new the second time I talk to him. I'm brand new. But if I hit him every month or a couple weeks, hey, really appreciate what you did, that kind of thing. How's everything? How's the family? This and that. He knows me. As soon as he hears I'm coming, now we're getting some help because they want to help us out. So you got to care about people. You got to follow up. You got to work the network. As you do this for a while, your network gets pretty big.
Right.
It's almost a full-time job managing the relationships that you already have, but you got to do it because you're as strong as your network, and that's pretty much it.
Heck yeah. Awesome.
They're the snipers,
Yep.
right? Of anybody that can remove you quicker than anybody else, faster than the artist will remove you, is somebody thinking you're getting in their space and taking their position. And so while they may be friends or family, or maybe they have some value, many of them do not, in my experience.
Right.
But they hold rank.
Right.
There's a difference between value and rank. They have rank, and you have to respect that. And just like when we're talking about going overseas and dealing with people, you have these cultures. And it might not be the right thing to do in this culture, but you're going into their culture.
Yep.
So you have to adapt, right? And we're talking about adaptability up here with every single aspect. You have to adapt to that entourage. And you're going to be facing that no matter who you go with. And what is acceptable in each realm of like, in our case, music, for example, is different. How they behave and what they do and how the principle values security, what kind of incidents they've had in the past. That's going to change that dynamic. And then there's the issue of deciding, is that battle worth it? Do you let them have their space and save the fight for the big things? And in my case, now, over 50 is let them do their little things that are annoying, and maybe they could lead to second order effects, maybe even, third order effects, but they're minor. I'm going to save it for the serious stuff when we go to the dangerous places, when we're in the dangerous situation, because I've built some buy-in, right, with the client, and I don't want to burn it on some piddly thing. So that's a bigger thing for me personally. Like I don't want to waste that on something small. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Okay, this is a big deal. Now it's time to pick this battle, and I'm going to fight them on this front. And I'm also ready to leave when that happens.
Right? Yeah, my man, smart. Hey, that's the royal court, man. That's why I call it the royal court. Everyone's vying for position, power. I see 2 more questions. Yesterday were the hard skills. These are the skills you must have in case you have to be a surgeon with a chainsaw, right? So, multi-stage competition, right? Bug sweeps. And I know some of y'all weren't ready for that stuff. Y'all thought this was going to be all gunplay, so I was mixing it up, making sure it's all like, a well-rounded. I wanted a full spectrum of challenges, medical station, blood pumping, see if you can deal with 3 different things that you could deal with on any given day. Heaven forbid, you might see car accident, whatever it is, could happen any given day. You may need these skills, right? Bug sweeps, any given day on the job. Client, you should be sweeping your clients' vehicles on some type of regular basis, right? You got vendors on property. Vehicles are leaving property, they're coming back, right? So this should just be in your protocols. Then we go into the shoot houses, right? Clients in a meeting, you hear gunshots. Can you navigate? Can you get your protectee through that office space without any rounds going where they're not supposed to from you or from the enemy? The other side, we did another shoot house, which was you're outside and you hear the gunfire. Can you go and retrieve your client, right? And lock them down in that safe space, get them to that safe room. And then we had the flat range, which was just basic fundamentals with your firearm, plate rack, attack on principle, step and shoot, right? 3 different positions, 360 degrees around the client. So this was awesome. I love it. How did you guys like it, man? How was it? Let's go, man. Ain't nobody, this is it, man. This is the protector game.
We're going deep right now.
Let's go. Bust out the scuba gear.
So mine's like a 2-part. It's one is you're not special.
Yep.
And you're also the most special person that there is, right? So there's nothing wrong with thinking you're the greatest thing since sliced bread if you know every single other person is the same. So how do you contribute to each other? Because we're all only as valuable as each other and our relationships and how we can serve each other. So that aspect of be humble, like you're not special, that's the be humble part, but also how do I contribute to other people to make them better? And one of Byron's sayings is rising tide lifts all ships, right? And you can see that in his everyday. Like, look at all the people that he brought together, the instructors he brings to bear, like that kind of thing. And like he said, he could try to keep this all for himself. He's got a great work product, but he's bringing up a bunch of different companies to speak to you. Maybe that takes food off his table, but it doesn't. because he has such great network and relationships. It's going to keep him alive for the rest of the game. You can't live on an island, so respect each other, love each other, take care of each other.
I love it, man. That's the good stuff. That's the good stuff.
I want to backpedal on my flippancy there. My best friend is a pastor, and the reason why he loves me is probably because I've broken more commandments than most people. However, having said that,
the love of Christ.
Having said, I know, there's no hope for me. But I would say, as a Christian, just be nice to everybody. Because you know what, as a protector, you can be deemed, and what the guys were talking about, certainly with the close protection, is that you will impact. I mean, like Elliott, certainly the fans. We can be intimidating to many people. So just be kind to everybody until it's time not to be kind.
Yeah, 100%. Okay? And be righteous either way. If it's time not to be kind, I'll deliver something that is in alignment.
And a caveat: be nice until it's not time to be kind. But even after that. Even after you've got them in cuffs, whatever you got going, treat it back with respect still. It's still not, just that one moment. Don't continue with it. You know, as far as you got to push it, that's it. Stop.
Yep. There's different types of currency in this world. There's financial, and then there's just doing good things and being respectful. And that's huge. That's what a lot of this is, man. So let's go. So, I mean, from the hip, it's situation dictates tactics, right? So if we're in an environment where, that within looking at our risks, threats, and vulnerabilities, that is relevant, then 100% those types of security postures and assets are assembled for something like that, right? And it really comes down to knowing who your local assets are and what they're capable of, and that they're vetted and that they can actually deliver, right? And so it really depends on where you're going and what you're doing and who you're doing it with. And that's how I would start to address that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally it falls within what we just generally term as journey management. Yep. So it really depends on the environment you're in. It depends on how many people there are in the package that you're needing to move, what the budget is, what kind of vehicles you've got, what routes, what are your options in terms of the routes, what is the indigenous threat, what is the specific threat on the principal, and then moving beyond that, you need to look at whether there's going to be issues such as refueling, which might be in transit, where you're going to do that. One of the things that we've been involved in is the protection of high-value cargoes that have moved through the Balkans, for example, where they're going to be targeted by organized crime. So we look at rest stops, we look at refueling stations, we look at border crossings, all sorts of places where, again, this comes down to human intelligence to find out whether there have been issues historically or currently where these cargoes have been hijacked by various different types. So again, journey management is a skill in itself. It's definitely worth considering. And in terms of what Todd was talking about in your risk assessment, there are so many different factors, and it's also got to be dynamic, because ultimately, as you're moving along, you've got a mobile issue. So you need to consider all of those things. That might look at emergency rendezvous. And from those emergency rendezvous that you may look at as rest stops, for example, you may want to consider beyond that how you would extract if there was a QRF that needed to be called in. So there are so many different factors there. It's a broad one. Not a simple answer, I'm afraid.
Thank you. And I just want to add to this. There's a term I use, it's called real world versus textbook.
Right.
So meaning that in a perfect world, we would love to have those things. However, when we're operational, we don't necessarily get those luxuries. So it obviously pays to train, learn, and be able to identify it. But again, when you're boots on the ground, you might not have that, and sometimes that's due to budget or environment, et cetera.
Yep, that's the game. Good stuff, brother. Heck yeah. Boom. Awesome, my man. Let's go.
How you doing? I'm Victor Cabrera from El Paso, Texas. My question for you guys is, do you all have a potential vetting system in place for potential clients? And if so, what are the red flags that y'all have that may say, you know what, this may not be for me?
There's a good one, man. There's a good one. I like this.
I got
Let's
a quick
go.
one. Where do I start? Okay, I'll give you an example. The other day, I had a client who called up and said, okay, we're looking to engage an oligarch, but we're very concerned whether they have any criminality in their history. And I went, well, I'll save you a few bucks. Yes, they do. So, I mean, we do KYC. One of the things that we're obviously very cautious of is only convicted criminals we won't manage. Simple as that. And again, it's about human intelligence and the joys of the internet. You can pretty much find anything you need. Even, I mean, I know here in the United States, you have much more liberal information accessibility, whereas in the UK, in Europe, we're very limited with GDPR, privacy, all sorts of things like that. But there are ways and means. Again, unless they're convicted, we'll generally look after them because we are mercenaries.
Yeah, I'd say not all money is good money.
Let's go. I love that statement, by the way. That's like the third one that we have for the weekend.
Not all money's good money, man. It's the truth. The ability to say no is a blessing. I didn't have that when I first started. I took whatever I could take because I needed to start. I was young. I had to make a name for myself. But now that we're at this level, we talked about God earlier, the golden rule. You know, I'm not going to put my guys in any situation that I'm not going to put myself. So that's your soul, your heart's going to be your best vetting system. You got to think to yourself. Now, you could do research and look on YouTube and see their videos and see some news press and do your TLO searches. That's all beautiful. But at the end of the day, after a while, you get that sixth sense. You develop that superpower as protectors that we developed by honing our skills worldwide, dealing with every single type of race, religion, and country, where you just know this doesn't feel right. And it might be a lot of money. It might be double what you're used to. And the hard thing for me is, it's not really that hard, but it gets hard when some of my guys are like, come on, boss, look, this guy's paying that much money. I know what the risks are. I want to get involved. And I still shut it down because I know he's looking at the money. Not all money's good money. He's got a beautiful wife and kids he's got to get home to. And that guy's last bodyguard got killed or got shot up. So your gut's going to tell you a lot of what you need to know as far as vetting. But again, doing your research on your principal, on your client, your potential client is major. But at the end of the day, if it's something that you're going to look at the mirror and say, I'm not doing this, but it is a lot of money, and John Smith said he wants it, don't do it, man. Say no.
Boom! Quick shout out to our sponsor, Staccato. My first pistol sponsor. I've been sponsored by a lot of companies, right, over the years. But when it comes to pistol, that's my bread and butter. Pistol is something I believe in. You know, I'm a competitive shooter. You know, we're shooting anywhere from, 800 rounds a month type of thing, right? So Staccato, being what I believe, is one of, if not the most complete handguns you can put in your hand. It's got every component that a handgun could have, should have. They're actually extremely dependable now that they've made some changes, and these things are straight up tack drivers. If you're looking for a pistol that will do as much of the work for you as a piece of hardware can, obviously you have to have the marksmanship and all the different things, but different guns perform at different levels. And I want to say that Staccato is one of, by far, for sure, take it from a competitive shooter, we're shooting the highest volumes of rounds constantly right now. Not used to have a background guy, but like right now, when you go shoot, you're gonna see certain brands. Staccato is one of, if not the highest performing firearm that is both CCW, duty ready, and also competitive ready. So I want to give them a shout out. If you guys are looking for a good handgun to build your skills on top of, go check out Staccato. Much love and respect. Boom. When it comes to the technology you use to protect your home, there's nothing better than Deep Sentinel. AI-driven, human-monitored technology that will keep you and your family safe for the same price you're paying for whatever Ring doorbell system you have. Check out Deep Sentinel. It's such an honor to join forces with these guys. They should be in every single house in the world. Get real-time Overwatch for you and your loved one. And for 10% off, depending on when you're watching this, don't forget to use code Byron at checkout. Boom. And to support this podcast, go to executiveprotectionlifestyle.com and contribute to our Patreon account. That Patreon account is what helps me make this podcast possible, contributing to this brand, what we're doing here, making it so that I can bring better guests on, making it so that we can plan more events and just expand the contribution to the private security industry and also to making America a safer place. Do whatever you can, contribute whatever you can, because it makes all of these things possible. Thanks for those contributions.